What's up, guys? So today I'm going to be officially starting my bad film reviews. In order to qualify for this, it is the critic score that I am looking at, or if it bombed at the box office, that sort of thing. Audience score for, as I'm doing today, Venom, was actually a lot higher than the critical score on Rotten Tomatoes. Its audience score was 89%, IMDb's was 71%. Google users had 94% liked rate. So yeah, but its critic score was 32%, and so therefore it qualifies. And seeing that it's out in cinemas right now, I figured I would make that the first episode of this series. There's a lot more exciting stuff to come. I'll break down how I'm going to be rating these myself, since this is a review. I will be giving ratings. So I've separated each film into 10 categories. They will all be the same categories across the board. That way we know that we're getting a fair representation of each film, and this will also allow me to talk about what I liked and what I didn't like within the films, in order to find redeeming qualities for these bad films. So the 10 sections that I'm going to be looking at are script, casting, acting, directing, cinematography, editing, set design, soundtrack, visual and special effects, and then its accuracy to source material or its originality as a new concept. And each of those will be out of 10, giving me a total score out of 100, which then gives me a very accurate percentage of what I think this film deserved. So let's jump straight in. I'm going to be looking at script based on how it fits to this. Story will come in as far as accuracy to source material or its originality. But otherwise, script is how it fits to the beat sheet, which is the structure of how a script is supposed to be written, and also how well the story as a whole sort of flows. So I have tried making this video a couple of times and then haven't been happy with how it turned out. So I am going to very quickly breeze through this. It does stick very closely to the beat sheet's layout. So we do get the catalyst of, and spoiler alert here as well, we do get the catalyst of Eddie Brock's life taking a turn for the worst at about the 12-minute mark where the catalyst is supposed to be. We do get introduced to Venom in the B story and get his sort of backstory. And then the rest of the film follows the A story of Eddie Brock and the B story of the Venom symbiote, which do combine in the break into 3 right before the finale, because the finale, being the big boss battle at the end, involves Eddie taking down the Life Foundation and Venom stopping Riot from bringing other symbiotes to planet Earth in order to basically decimate it. So yeah, it does stick very closely to the beat sheet, and so for that I can't fault it. However, and this goes into editing as well, 40 minutes of this film were left on the cutting room floor, so there's more story to be told in this movie, and hopefully when the Blu-ray comes out we'll be able to explore all that and look at all that, and maybe that will change the critics' viewpoint on it, I suppose. I have read a couple of articles that said that one of the scenes that was cut was supposed to be set on the Clintar homeworld. The Clintar are the alien species that Venom and Riot and Carnage all come from. So yeah, so for script, I'm going to give this a 7.5. Now, casting and acting for this film sort of go hand in hand, because it was either Tom Hardy and Woody Harrelson, who I already knew, have watched multiple other instances of their works and love them thoroughly, or people like Riz Ahmed, who I hadn't even heard of before this film, who just absolutely blew me away with their portrayal of their character. I was watching the New Rockstars podcast thing where they were talking about this film as well, and I do agree with what one of the presenters said, where he said that they were watchable and that wasn't a bad thing, because it meant that when the scenes cut from one actor's character to another's, you weren't like, take me back to that other guy, I want to see more of him. You were happy with whoever was on screen because they all gave really good performances. And so casting and acting herein get 8 each. The directing gets a lower score because of how the fight scenes, and the fight scenes really are the weak point here in this film, but how they were directed and the directing choices that were made in those scenes does let it down. As far as one of the scenes, which was released as a bit of promotional material, showed Venom fighting some like SWAT officers in this building that was filled with smoke at nighttime while the lights were off, and he's a black symbiote. So it was kind of like black on black on black with smoke screen, and you couldn't really make out what he was doing. They'd throw in a flash grenade to light up the scene behind him for a split second so you could get, you know, a bit of movement or whatever. But while he was in the smoke, it was kind of hard to make out what was happening. And then he'd jump out of the smoke, grab a guy, throw them down. There is one shot that you can make out very easily what he's doing, because he picks up a guy and he slams him around, and it takes a moment to just sort of appreciate the fact that he's using this guy in a Hulk-esque way, like the same way that Hulk threw Loki around, but instead of just beating him into the floor, he's using him to beat the other guys, and then throws him, and it stops sort of jumping from cut to cut to cut to just sort of appreciate that shot. But otherwise, the fight scenes let it down here, directing-wise, so it gets a 6.5. As I was just talking about as well, cinematography and editing suffer a bit from that as well. This movie you can sort of break into two sort of parts. There's the dramatic character-based story arc scenes, like most movies have, and then there's the gratuitous violence action scenes, which is what you paid for. You paid to go and see Venom beat the crap out of some guys and then ultimately stop an alien invasion. That's what you paid for. But the character scenes I found were my favourite part, because the camera angles allowed you to establish how the character was feeling, the relationship between characters, all this other stuff. It was really good cinematography, really good editing. But then you get to action sequences, like I just said, and it would jump too quickly for you to make out what was going on, and the camera angles were a little off-putting, a little jarring. The end fight scene, particularly, there's like a 10-second block in my memory where I don't even know who was on what side of the screen, because you have Venom, who is a black alien being CG'd into existence, and you have Riot, who is a slightly larger grey alien being CG'd into existence, and they're fighting, and just the very nature of the alien is that they're basically living liquid. So they're splashing about all over the place, and you can't tell whose body liquid is flying off to the left of the screen and whose is flying off to the right, because they're a similar colour palette, and the scene is set at nighttime, so you just can't make it out. So there's like 10 seconds in that fight scene where I don't know what happened, but it ended with them somehow fusing together for all of about 10 seconds to run up the side of a rocket before another character, thankfully, played some high-pitched noise through the speakers on the launch pad and caused them to split apart, allowing for the sort of big sort of ending to the fight scene. But otherwise, I don't know what happened in that fight scene. So cinematography and editing, because of these things, get a 6. I wish I could give it more because the character scenes really were amazing. Set design and location. Location sort of comes into the accuracy here, so I will talk about it very briefly. The San Francisco setting makes sense when you remember that this film is based on the Lethal Protector storyline. So that made sense. I did also like that the sets were sort of interactive, and that particularly, obviously, Tom Hardy with his Eddie Brock and Venom character, I particularly liked the way that they were able to sort of interact with their environment in fight scenes. There's a really cool shot where he sort of slingshots himself around a corner under a truck, using the Venom symbiote to not crash and burn, basically. And there's another really cool bit where he uses some of the architectural design features of a building to attack some people by dropping it on their heads. So I did like that the set designs sort of started off as, this is a generic home, this is the generic office building with some architectural design features, this is a, the gangway to a rocket ship, and they were able to then use the sets and the locations and stuff to like involve the characters and make them feel like they're actually part of it, rather than just, we're just some guy standing in a generic car park. It was sort of, I did like the set designs and the locations and stuff. So I'm giving it an 8 for that. Soundtrack as well, I'm giving an 8 to, and that's mainly because of the only song that I can remember from the entire film, which is Venom by Eminem, which is on his new album Kamikaze. I have added it to one of my playlists on Spotify, because it really does capture the essence of his character in this film, and I love it for that reason. So you're sort of watching the film, you get an idea for his character, and then the end credits start, and you're sitting there waiting for the after credit scenes because you're a good Marvel fan, and this song comes on, and you can just hear in the lyrics, the delivery of the lyrics, the music, the beat, everything, exactly who Venom and Eddie Brock are, and it's amazing. So soundtrack gets an 8. Visual and special effects get a 7. As I said before, the use of like the smoke screen, the smoke machines and stuff in that one fight scene sort of bring this down a bit, because that narratively it makes sense, but as far as being able, like, watchability, it does impede on your ability to make out some of the things that happen. Obviously others are paid special focus to, particular moves and etc., but otherwise just the generic fighting is sort of obscured and you can't really make out much. However, the end fight scene with the CG of the two symbiotes fighting. As I said before, there's a 10 something block right there that I can't remember what happened in. I can't even remember if I said that was the seconds or minutes. Anyway, yeah, so, but otherwise, explosions weren't used too much, and when they were used, it made sense. Yeah, so I'm going to give special and visual effects a 7. I know that's basically judging 2 things out of 5 each and adding them together, but it gets a 7, which is still pretty good. Then as far as accuracy and originality, the last thing on this list, I'm giving it an 8. It did follow, obviously being a superhero film, we've got to give them some creative license to tell their story. And then when you remember that this is not only based on Lethal Protector storyline, it's also got some influences from Planet of the Symbiotes storyline as well. We have to give them some creative leeway to combine the 2 stories into a cohesive narrative. So it does get an 8 for accuracy. Carlton Drake is the leader of the Life Foundation in the Lethal Protector storyline. That's in the film as well. He does take seeds of the Clintar, the alien life form. In the movie, they're from a meteor on their way back from a trip to the moon, I think it was. They went to the moon, decided to come back, saw a meteor, detected signs of life, picked the seeds from there, took them back. In the comics, Venom was already an established character, and they capture him and take seeds from him, which then become his offspring, which are Riot and Phage and Lasher and Scream, and I can't remember the other ones. Agony. Obviously in this film we only got Riot because the other ones died. Would have been really cool to see Lasher and Scream. Scream was the yellow symbiote that died. Lasher, I'm assuming, would have been the blue one, considering in the comic books he was green. So that's just what I'm going with there for that. And as I said before, it was set in San Francisco, so it's pretty accurate to that storyline, as well as it ends with Venom having to fight Riot in order to stop whatever nefarious plot happens in that storyline. I did look it up, I just can't remember exactly what the ending to that storyline was. But I do know that it was pretty accurate for a movie based on a comic book. As far as personal enjoyment goes, I obviously loved this film. The combined score of those 10 scores was 73 out of 100, so 73% is what I would rate this if I'm giving it a percentage rating. Which, if you combined the other 4 scores that I mentioned at the beginning of the video, so IMDb's 71%, the Rotten Tomatoes critic score of 32, the audience score of 89, and the 94% from Google, you do get 72%, so I'm only 1 point above that. So I'm right in there at the sort of middle ground of the general consensus. So I feel like this formula is going to work for all these other films. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, guys, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and that notification bell. This is going to become a series. I have a whole lot of other movies and stuff that I'm going to review and then review for your entertainment. I got films like that horrible Catwoman Halle Berry film, Green Lantern's on the list. Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. I do loathe that film, but I've set myself the challenge of finding something good about that film. I hate that film. Anyway, they are all gonna be in the pipeline at some point, so you will want to hit that notification bell if you want to see those videos. And don't forget to leave me a comment down below. Let me know what video or movie you don't like. I will probably end up adding it to the list if it isn't added already, and then reviewing that as part of this series at some point. So let me know, and we will build this series together. And until next time, guys, keep raising hell.